The door creaked open just as Malik turned the key, revealing Isaiah locked in a passionate kiss with a stranger in their living room. In that instant, the 5 years they had built together crumbled like a house of cards, leaving Malik standing there with his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. The grocery bags slipped from his hands, oranges rolling across the hardwood floor like tiny accusations. Isaiah pulled back, eyes wide with panic, while the other man, some guy Malik had never seen before, scrambled for his shirt. Malik felt the floor tilt beneath him. This was their apartment in the heart of Chicago, the one they had picked out together after Isaiah passed the bar exam. The place where they had celebrated anniversaries and lazy Sundays with coffee and the Sunday paper. Now it smelled like someone else's cologne mixed with the faint trace of the Thai takeout Malik had brought home as a surprise. Malik, wait. It's not what it looks like, Isaiah stammered, stepping forward with his hands raised like he was calming a wild animal. But it was exactly what it looked like. Malik had walked in on his boyfriend of 5 years, the man he had introduced to his skeptical parents, the one who held him through the nights when work deadlines crushed him, cheating right there in the open. He turned without a word and walked out, the door slamming behind him with a finality that echoed down the hallway. The elevator ride down felt endless. Outside on Michigan Avenue, the November wind bit at his face, but it was nothing compared to the ice forming in his chest. How long had this been going on? The late nights at the firm, the sudden business trips to New York, the way Isaiah had been pulling away for months. Malik had chalked it up to stress, to the pressure of being one of the few black associates climbing the ranks at a prestigious law firm. He had supported Isaiah through it all, working extra freelance design gigs to cover the rent when money got tight. Now every memory tasted like ash. Malik wandered the streets for hours, past the glowing windows of cafes where couples laughed over wine, past the park where they had shared their first kiss under the stars 3 years ago. His phone buzzed nonstop with calls from Isaiah, then texts that he couldn't bring himself to read. When he finally stopped at a bench near the lake, the city lights reflecting on the dark water like scattered diamonds, the tears came. Not loud sobs, but quiet, shaking ones that left him gasping. He had always known being gay in a family like his came with complications. His father, a retired Marine, had barely spoken to him after the coming-out conversation 5 years earlier. His mother sent cards on birthdays but never asked about Isaiah. Malik had told himself their love was enough to weather anything. Now even that foundation was gone. By the time he checked into a cheap hotel near the train station, exhaustion had settled into his bones. He stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment. The way Isaiah had smiled at him that morning, promising dinner together. The way he had said, "I love you," before leaving for work. Lies, all of it. Malik pulled out his sketchbook, the one he carried everywhere, and began drawing without thinking. Lines formed into a shattered mirror reflecting 2 versions of himself, one broken and one still standing. He didn't know what the drawing meant yet, but it was the first time in hours he felt something other than emptiness. The next morning brought no clarity, only a text from his best friend Jordan. "Heard what happened. Come over. We need to talk." Malik stared at the message for a long time. Jordan had been there since college, the straight ally who never blinked when Malik brought Isaiah to game nights. If anyone could help him make sense of this, it was Jordan. He packed his small bag and headed out into the cold Chicago morning, the skyscrapers towering above him like silent judges. Little did he know that this betrayal was only the beginning of a journey that would force him to confront not just Isaiah's lies, but every part of himself he had been hiding from the world and from his own heart. The coffee shop where he met Jordan smelled of fresh espresso and cinnamon rolls, a comforting normalcy that felt foreign now. Jordan was already there, 2 cups waiting, his face etched with concern. "Man, I don't even know what to say," he started, sliding the coffee across the table. Malik wrapped his hands around the warm cup, letting the heat seep into his palms. He didn't even try to deny it at first, just stood there like I was the one who walked in on something private. Jordan listened without interrupting, nodding as Malik poured out the details, the late nights, the excuses, the growing distance. When Malik finished, Jordan leaned back. "You deserve better than this." Isaiah always seems solid, but people hide things. The question is, what are you going to do now? Malik didn't have an answer. That night back in the hotel, he finally read Isaiah's messages. Apologies mixed with explanations about stress and a one-time mistake. It meant nothing, Isaiah wrote. You're my everything. Malik deleted them all. He opened his laptop and started updating his resume, something he hadn't touched in years. The freelance work had been steady, but maybe it was time to build something that was just his. The cursor blinked like a heartbeat. He thought about his family in Atlanta, the last awkward phone call where his father had changed the subject when Malik mentioned Isaiah. Would they even care now? Or would this just confirm their fears that his life was unstable? Days blurred into one another. Malik avoided their old neighborhood, crashing on Jordan's couch instead. He threw himself into work, designing logos for a new nonprofit that helped LGBTQ youth. The irony wasn't lost on him. Here he was, creating symbols of hope while his own world felt like it was collapsing. One evening Jordan brought home pizza and they talked late into the night. You know, this isn't just about Isaiah, Jordan said quietly. You've been carrying everyone else's expectations for so long. Maybe this is your chance to figure out who Malik really is without the filter. The words hit hard. Malik had always been the peacemaker, the one who smoothed things over, who made sure everyone else was okay. Now he had to face the mirror alone. The first confrontation came sooner than he expected. Isaiah showed up at Jordan's building unannounced, flowers in hand like some scene from a bad movie. Malik stepped outside, arms crossed against the wind. You can't just show up here, he said, voice steadier than he felt. Isaiah's eyes were red-rimmed. I made a mistake, Malik. I was scared. The firm was pressuring me, and I thought if I could keep everything separate. Malik cut him off. Separate? Like I was some dirty secret. The conversation spiraled from there, accusations flying, old wounds reopening. When Isaiah finally left, Malik stood on the sidewalk feeling raw but strangely lighter. He had said the things he needed to say. That night he slept without nightmares for the first time in a week. Work became his anchor. The nonprofit project expanded, and soon he was meeting with clients across the city. One afternoon he found himself in a small community center on the south side, presenting designs to a group of young men who reminded him of himself at 18, scared but determined. Their stories of coming out, of family rejection, of finding their own paths mirrored his own pain. For the first time he felt seen, not as Isaiah's boyfriend or the son who disappointed his father, but as someone with something to offer. On the train ride home he sketched again, this time a bridge spanning two shores, one dark and stormy, the other bathed in light. He labeled it simply Awakening. Weeks turned into a month, and the ache in Malik's chest dulled from a sharp stab to a constant throb. He had moved into a tiny studio apartment in Logan Square, the kind of place with creaky floors and neighbors who played music too loud. But it was his. No shared closet full of Isaiah's suits, no coffee mug with their initials. He bought new sheets and a plant that he promised himself he wouldn't kill. Small victories. Jordan checked in daily, sometimes dragging him out for runs along the lakefront where the wind cleared his head. You're doing the work, Jordan would say, and Malik started to believe it. Then the call came from his mother. Your father saw the pictures online, she said without preamble. Someone had posted a blurry shot from the night of the confrontation, Isaiah leaving the building with the flowers. The caption had been kind enough not to name names, but the Chicago gay community was small. Malik's stomach dropped. He hasn't said much, but he's upset. You know how he is. The conversation was short, filled with the careful distance his family had perfected. No questions about how he was doing, just the implication that this was another mess he had brought on himself. Malik hung up and stared at the wall. He had spent years proving he could succeed despite their doubts. And now this. That evening he met Jordan at their favorite bar, the one with dim lights and a jukebox full of old soul records. Over beers Jordan listened as Malik vented about the call. They never really accepted us, Malik admitted. Even when things were good, it was always as long as you don't rub it in our faces. Jordan nodded. Family's complicated. But you can't live for them forever. As the night wore on, other friends joined them, guys from the design community who had heard bits and pieces. Their support felt genuine, no pity, just understanding. One of them, a photographer named Alex, pulled Malik aside later. I went through something similar 2 years ago. It gets better, but you have to choose yourself first. The words stuck with Malik on the walk home. Choose himself. The next day brought an unexpected email from the nonprofit. They loved his designs and wanted to expand the campaign citywide. The project would mean travel, meetings, and a chance to speak at events. Malik accepted without hesitation. For the first time in months, he felt purpose pulling him forward. He spent evenings refining the artwork, colors bold and unapologetic, symbols of strength and connection. Isaiah texted occasionally, short messages asking if they could talk, but Malik left them unanswered. The silence felt like power. Christmas approached, and with it the dread of family obligations. His mother invited him home to Atlanta, but the subtext was clear. Come alone. Malik booked the flight anyway, telling himself it was time to face them. The plane ride gave him hours to think. He remembered the day he told his parents he was gay, the way his father's face had tightened like he was holding back a storm. Isaiah had been his shield then, steady and reassuring. Now Malik was walking into that storm alone. Atlanta greeted him with familiar humidity and the smell of his mother's cooking. Dinner was tense, conversations skating around the obvious. His father finally spoke after dessert. We saw what happened. That man wasn't good for you. Malik set his fork down. His name is Isaiah, and you're right, he wasn't. But that doesn't change who I am. The words hung in the air. For once his father didn't argue. Instead he nodded once, a small crack in the armor. It wasn't acceptance, but it was something. The rest of the visit passed in careful politeness, but Malik left feeling like he had reclaimed a piece of himself. Back in Chicago, the new year brought fresh energy. The nonprofit campaign launched with his designs featured on billboards across the city. He attended the opening event at a gallery downtown, dressed in a simple black sweater that made him feel put together for the first time in ages. People stopped him to compliment the work, and for a moment he allowed himself to feel proud. Then he saw him. Isaiah stood near the entrance, looking polished as always in a tailored coat. Their eyes met across the room. Malik's pulse quickened, but he didn't look away. Isaiah approached slowly. You look good, he said quietly. The work is incredible. Malik thanked him, keeping his voice even. They exchanged a few more words, surface level, but the old pull was gone. When Isaiah left, Malik realized the ache had faded to memory. The following weeks brought new routines. He joined a support group for gay men navigating breakups, sitting in a circle every Tuesday listening to stories that mirrored his own. One man spoke of losing everything only to rebuild stronger. Malik shared his own journey, the betrayal, the family tension, the slow rebuilding. Speaking it aloud made it real and manageable. After one meeting, Alex from the bar approached him outside. You're handling this with grace, he said. They grabbed coffee afterward, conversation flowing easily about art and life and the city they both loved. It was the first time Malik laughed without forcing it in weeks. Spring arrived with tentative warmth, melting the last of the snow and with it some of Malik's lingering numbness. The nonprofit work took him to different neighborhoods, meeting young people who looked up to the campaign as a beacon. One afternoon at a youth center, he facilitated a workshop on creative expression. A teenager named Tyler sketched a self-portrait and whispered, I don't know if my dad will ever get it. Malik sat beside him. I didn't think mine would either, but I stopped waiting for permission. The boy's grateful smile stayed with him long after. These moments reminded Malik why he had chosen this path. At home, he started painting again, large canvases filling the small studio with color. One piece showed a man walking away from a burning bridge, flames reflecting in the water below. He titled it Release. Jordan came over to see the new work and whistled. This is next level, man. You turned pain into something powerful. They ordered Thai food, the same kind Malik had carried that fateful night, and talked about everything and nothing. Jordan had started dating someone new, a teacher from the suburbs, and Malik found himself genuinely happy for his friend. The jealousy he once might have felt was gone. Isaiah's messages had stopped, but mutual friends mentioned he had left the firm for a smaller practice upstate. Malik felt nothing but a distant pity. The man he had loved was gone, replaced by someone he no longer recognized. He focused instead on the present. Alex invited him to a gallery opening in Wicker Park, and Malik accepted. They wandered the exhibits together, discussing brushstrokes and meaning. Alex's quiet humor and steady presence felt like sunlight after a long winter. When they parted ways that night with a simple hug, Malik walked home smiling. The first real test came when his sister called from Atlanta. "Dad's been asking about you," she said. "Not in a bad way. He saw one of your billboards online." Malik's heart skipped. They talked for an hour, the longest conversation in years. She told him their father had shown the campaign photo to his buddies at the VFW, grumbling but proud. Small steps. Malik hung up feeling lighter than he had in months. That weekend he drove out to a cabin in Wisconsin with Jordan and a few friends. The woods were still bare, but the air smelled of possibility. Around the fire they shared stories, and Malik opened up about the betrayal in ways he hadn't before. The group listened, offering no easy answers, just presence. Back in the city, the relationship with Alex deepened naturally. No pressure, no rush. They cooked dinner at Malik's place, watched old movies, and talked about dreams. Alex had his own story of coming out young and losing friends, but he had built a life he loved. "I learned that real love doesn't ask you to shrink," he said one night over wine. Malik nodded, feeling the truth of it settle in his bones. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine a future that included someone new. Then the past resurfaced. Isaiah emailed asking to meet for coffee, saying he had things to explain. Malik stared at the message for days. Part of him wanted closure, another part feared reopening wounds. He discussed it with Alex, who simply said, "Whatever you choose, I'll support you." Malik agreed to the meeting at a neutral cafe near the river. Isaiah arrived early, looking thinner but composed. They sat across from each other like strangers. "I was living two lives," Isaiah admitted. "The perfect lawyer by day, the man who loved you by night, and I couldn't hold it together. The affair wasn't one time. I'm sorry I hurt you." Malik listened, the words washing over him without the old sting. When Isaiah finished, Malik spoke calmly. "I forgive you. Not for you but for me. I needed to hear it." They parted without hugs or promises, just mutual understanding that the chapter was closed. The meeting freed something in Malik. He threw himself into a new project, a mural for the community center. The design featured interconnected hands reaching across divides, colors vibrant and hopeful. Volunteers helped paint it over a weekend, laughter filling the air. Tyler from the workshop showed up and worked beside him. "You inspired me," the boy said. Malik smiled, realizing the circle was complete. Summer brought festivals and longer days, and Malik's life felt fuller than it had in years. The mural unveiling drew a crowd, local news covering the event as a symbol of resilience in the LGBTQ community. He stood on the small stage, microphone in hand, sharing briefly about his journey without naming names. "Sometimes the hardest betrayals lead us to the truest versions of ourselves," he said. The applause was genuine. Alex stood in the front row, pride shining in his eyes. Afterward they walked along the lake, hands brushing until Malik took Alex's. Felt right. Family ties continued to mend in small ways. His mother sent a care package with his favorite cookies and a note that simply said, "Proud of you." His father didn't call, but the silence had lost its sting. Malik planned a trip home for the holidays, this time inviting Alex if things continued to grow. The thought no longer terrified him. Work opportunities multiplied. A major gallery offered him a solo show based on the Awakening series. He spent nights in the studio, painting pieces that explored light emerging from darkness. One canvas showed two figures walking separate paths that eventually converged in sunlight. He dedicated the show to every man who had ever questioned his worth. Jordan helped hang the pieces, cracking jokes to ease the nerves. On opening night, the room buzzed with energy. Strangers approached him with stories of their own awakenings. One older man thanked him for giving voice to experiences he had buried for decades. Malik felt a profound sense of purpose. Isaiah's name came up only once, when a mutual acquaintance mentioned he was engaged to someone new. Malik felt nothing but quiet well wishes. The jealousy and anger were gone, replaced by indifference. That night he and Alex sat on the rooftop of Malik's building. City lights spread below them like stars. "You've come so far," Alex said softly. Malik leaned into him. "We both have." Their first kiss was gentle, full of promise rather than desperation. It was the kind of moment Malik had once thought impossible after the betrayal. Challenges still appeared. A conservative group protested one of the non-profit events, signs condemning the campaign. Malik stood with the youth, holding signs of his own that read, "Love is love." The experience tested him, but the support from the community reinforced his resolve. He spoke at a rally the following week, voice steady as he addressed the crowd. "We don't ask for permission to exist. We build our own spaces." The cheers lifted him higher. Alex became a steady presence, not a replacement but a partner in growth. They traveled to Michigan for a weekend, hiking dunes and talking about the future. Malik shared his fears of repeating past mistakes. Alex listened and shared his own. "We choose each day," he said. The honesty strengthened them. Back in Chicago they attended Pride together, marching with the nonprofit group. The energy of thousands celebrating filled Malik with joy he hadn't known existed. He held Alex's hand proudly, no longer hiding. Fall returned with crisp air and changing leaves, and Malik's solo show opened to glowing reviews. Critics praised the emotional depth, the way the paintings captured universal themes of love and loss. Sales exceeded expectations, allowing him to quit some freelance work and focus on personal projects. He used the extra time to mentor at the youth center, guiding Tyler through college applications and listening to his dreams. The role felt natural, like coming full circle. A letter arrived from his father, handwritten and unexpected. "Son, I've been thinking. What you do with the kids down there matters. Keep going." No apology, no grand declaration, but enough to bring tears to Malik's eyes. He read it to Alex over breakfast, and they celebrated with a quiet toast. The healing was slow but real. The relationship with Alex deepened into something solid. They moved in together after 6 months, choosing a larger apartment with space for both their careers. Mornings involved coffee and shared sketches, evenings filled with laughter and honest conversations. Malik no longer waited for the other shoe to drop. Trust had returned gradually, earned through small daily choices. Then came the invitation that tested everything. Isaiah and his new partner were getting married and had sent Malik a card. It wasn't an invitation to attend, just a polite announcement. Malik stared at it for a long time before showing Alex. "How do you feel?" Alex asked. Malik thought carefully. "Free. Truly free." He wrote a short note wishing them well and mailed it without regret. The act closed the final door. The nonprofit asked him to lead a national workshop series on using art for healing. Travel meant time away, but Alex supported it fully. At the first event in New York, Malik shared his full story publicly for the first time. The room was packed with men from all walks of life. When he described the betrayal and the long road to awakening, many nodded in recognition. The standing ovation at the end wasn't for him alone, but for every shared experience in the room. Afterward, a young man approached. "You gave me hope that I can survive this too." Malik hugged him briefly. "You will." Back home, he and Alex took a weekend trip to the cabin in Wisconsin. The leaves were brilliant red and gold. They hiked the same trails and sat by the same fire. Malik looked at the man beside him and felt a deep peace. "I never thought I'd be here again," he admitted. Alex smiled. "You built this." They talked about the future, maybe adopting someday, maybe starting a small gallery together. The possibilities felt endless. Winter settled over Chicago once more, but this time the cold felt invigorating rather than isolating. Malik stood in their new apartment, now filled with both their belongings and the warmth of shared life. The mural at the community center had been expanded, and Tyler had just been accepted to art school thanks in part to the recommendation Malik wrote. His family planned to visit for the holidays, a first in years. His father had even asked about Alex. Small miracles. The gallery show tour extended to other cities, and Malik traveled with Alex when possible. Each talk he gave grew easier, the story no longer defined by pain but by triumph. He had turned betrayal into purpose, isolation into connection. One evening after a presentation in Boston, Alex surprised him with tickets to a quiet dinner overlooking the harbor. Over dessert, Alex simply said, "I love the man you've become." Malik took his hand. "I love us." Back in Chicago, he completed a final painting for the series, a large canvas showing a man standing on a hill at dawn, arms open to the rising sun. He titled it simply Awakening. It sold immediately, but he kept a print for their home. Jordan came over for game night with his partner, and the four of them laughed until late. Life felt balanced, full of the relationships he had fought to build. Friendship, family, and love that respected every part of him. As snow fell outside the window, Malik reflected on the journey. The door he had opened that night had led not to ruin but to rebirth. He was no longer the man who needed validation from others. He was Malik, designer, mentor, partner, son, and above all, himself. Alex joined him at the window, wrapping arms around his waist. "What are you thinking?" he asked. Malik smiled. "How lucky I am. Is true love worth the pain of betrayal if it leads to genuine self-discovery? True or false?"